Hey, what's up, everybody? So I want to go over some Jaire Alexander news that came out today in a Matt LaFleur press conference, and it's shared here from Tom Silverstein on X. He said this: Packers coach Matt LaFleur said that cornerback Jaire Alexander will undergo surgery and will be done for the year. Quote, he was trying to get his knee right and it wasn't getting right. It's a tough deal for everyone. It stinks that we're here, but we are here. End of quote. So we already heard from LaFleur yesterday that Jaire could miss the rest of the season. Now it's looking like he will. And it sounds like the issues that have gone on with his knee since he had the PCL tear earlier in the season, 6 or so games ago, they tried to bring him in. He plays for 10 snaps. His knee wasn't feeling right. He he comes out of the game. And then for the past, 6 weeks or so, he's practiced. He's fully practiced, sort of gone back and forth. And it just looks like, for whatever reason, the knee isn't really healing like the Packers had maybe hoped or expected that it would. And now there's a surgery that some reports have said it has happened. Let me just read those here. It says from Adam Schefter, more, as it turns out, Packers Pro Bowl cornerback Jaire Alexander underwent arthroscopic knee surgery Tuesday to alleviate his pain and swelling per source. He could make it back for Super Bowl if Packers made it that far. So it sounds there that this is something that maybe in a month and a half, Jaire could be ready to return. Maybe that's wishful thinking. I'm not sure how much or how likely that would be, but it sounds like, at least from Schefter's reporting, that could be a possibility. Tom Silverstein adds here, according to a source, Alexander had an arthroscopic procedure to figure out what was causing the pain in his knee and cleaning it out. It's not considered major surgery. He tried to work through it in practice, but kept tweaking it. His season is over. So Matt LaFleur in the press conference had mentioned that, at least here from Tom Silverstein, where it says Jaire will undergo surgery. And so I've just sort of been trying to figure out if this surgery that happened on Tuesday, the arthroscopic knee surgery that both Schefter and Silverstein shared, I'm thinking that may be the injury Matt LaFleur is referring to. If not, that would mean he would have another surgery coming up, which I don't think that's the case. But that's sort of the information that has been put out there, that there was something done on Tuesday to, sort of see what's going on and clean out whatever the issue was there. So it's just a tough spot for the Packers, for Jaire Alexander, and I know tons of people get on players for being injured, but of course, all these NFL players, they want to be out there. They want to be playing football. They don't want to be sitting on the bench and having to sit there while their team's out there playing. Of course, Jaire wishes that he was fully healthy, fully playing. And so it's just tough for him because for the past 4 seasons, he just hasn't really been available very often. Outside of his season in 2022, he played 16 games there. But in the past 4 years, in 2021, he played in 4 games. In 2022, 16. In 2023, 7. And now in 2024, 7. And so it's just tough when you're paying a guy the amount of money you are paying Jaire Alexander. With the deal they gave him back in May of 2022, signing him to a 4-year, $84 million extension, which made him the highest paid cornerback at the time. He's still pretty high up there when it comes to cornerback money per year. When you're investing that much money and a guy can't play, it definitely, hurts what you're doing out there. And there's no doubt that the Packers are a worse team defensively when Jaire Alexander is not out there playing cornerback. And that's why I was just hopeful the past few weeks that Jaire could potentially be ready for the playoffs. I assumed that he would be because we hadn't really gotten a ton of negative news, but at the same time, I was a little bit hesitant just because we didn't know what was happening. He wasn't coming back. It was looking a little worrisome. Reminded me a little bit of Dave Bakhtiari years ago, because the way it starts out, they start, sharing that they have some, injury problems. They're not coming back. And it's sort of like slowly over time, you start to realize, oh, wait, maybe this is more serious than it really seemed initially. And that was sort of how this was starting to progress, just because he wasn't playing. There wasn't much information coming out, sort of just, no new information had really come out until this week. And so now we sort of have a better idea of him and sort of what's going on with the knee. I think it makes sense. When he's not playing, then clearly, the knee's just not healing as the Packers sort of hoped it would. And here's some stats from the Packers with Jaire and without Jaire this season. This is posted from Zach Cruz on Twitter. He said this from Next Gen Stats. Packers allowing 61% completion percentage and 77.5 passer rating with Alexander on the field in 2024. Packers allowing 70.7% completion percentage and 95.3 passer rating without Alexander on the field. So that is a massive difference from a 77.5 passer rating with Jaire on the field and a 95.3 passer rating with Jaire not on the field. And so you look at the pass game against the Vikings with Sam Darnold having his career high in passing yards, with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Jalen Naylor, all of them having pretty big days. There's no doubt the Packers secondary is hurting without Jaire. And now looking ahead to the playoffs with Jaire not going to be playing, maybe there's a sliver of hope for the Super Bowl if the Packers make it there, which Adam Schefter says. I do wonder if that's sort of just wishful thinking, but maybe it's a possibility. I don't know. But without Jaire in the playoffs, the Packers offense is going to need to come to play because we've seen what happens to the secondary when Jaire is not out on the field. And this defense at times, playing against some of the best offenses in the NFL, does struggle a good amount. And so the Packers offense is really going to need to play great football come playoff time, which they already would have needed to. But if Jaire could have been back, when you're playing a team like the Vikings, you can put him on Justin Jefferson a lot of the time. It really just changes a lot of things for your defense when you have a stud cornerback out there. So it's very unfortunate. Now, of course, the question is, will Jaire be back next season for the Packers? I've seen lots of people discussing this. And the thing with this is, obviously, with him not playing a lot of games here, 7 this year, 7 last year, when you're paying a guy that much money and he's not playing a lot of football, it's you're not really getting the money's worth for what you're putting into it and putting into him, in his contract. But the thing is, if you sort of look at some of his future years here, I don't think moving on from Jaire Alexander makes much sense financially, just because when you look at his cap hit for next year, it's about $25.8 million cap hit next season, according to Spotrac, and about a $19 million dead cap hit. So that means if the Packers were to move on from Jaire Alexander before June 1st, so they were to cut him, they would only save about $7 million on their cap, and they would still have a $19 million dead cap hit if Jaire were to be cut. So if, let's say, there wasn't a dead cap hit and you saved that whole $25 million by releasing Jaire, maybe you do it just because he has dealt with a lot of injuries the past 4 seasons. I'm not sure you can rely on him or really expect him to play a full season just based off of what we've seen the past few seasons here in Green Bay. But when there's a $19 million dead cap hit and you're only saving $7 million, is it really worth saving $7 million to pick up, to use that money elsewhere? I don't know, because when Jaire is playing, he's still playing at a top tier level. It would be one thing if in the games he had played this year and last year, he was playing, as an average cornerback. Maybe you debate that idea more. But the fact that he's still playing top tier football when he's on the field, I think you have to bring him back next year. Maybe if a team were to offer you like a first round pick, then you consider it because you're having to eat that $19 million. But for $7 million to move on from him, I don't think that makes the most sense. Now, maybe if he continues to struggle with injuries next year, then after the season, it could make more sense because, let me pull up some of the numbers here, but after the 2025 season, the dead cap hit is definitely more manageable for Jaire Alexander. And as I'm pulling it up here, 1 second, if we look at his, so you can either cut a player before June 1st or after June 1st. And based on when you cut the player, it does change the financial implications when it comes to cap hit. So as I said, here we have it from overthecap.com. It's slightly different than Spotrac, which is another site that calculates this, but it's within 500,000 to $1 million, so pretty much the same numbers. But according to Over the Cap, it's a dead cap hit if he's cut before June 1st of $18.1 million. Now, if he is cut post June 1st, it's a $7.8 million dead cap hit. Now, with that number, you save $17.5 million if you release him. And so in that instance, I think that could make more sense because if you're saving $17 million on a guy that you're concerned whether or not he's going to play a full season. Okay, you can use that $17 million to, sign a corner who maybe you have more faith in just from a health perspective to come in and fill that Jaire Alexander hole. Sure, of course, you could draft a corner, which I think the Packers may want to do this year because their secondary has struggled, but it's more feasible post-June 1 cut. He would still have a $7.8 million dead cap hit the next year as well. And going back to the pre-June 1st cut, he would have an $18.1 million dead cap hit in 2025. And then so that's pretty much the number there. So as I said, don't think it makes a ton of sense to cut him because if he comes back, maybe he comes back healthy next year, then you're still getting top-tier cornerback play. So that's sort of my thoughts on the entire situation. Without Jaire on the roster, I think that Carrington Valentine has played pretty good football for the most part. I think that without Jaire, I think Carrington's been the best corner on this team. When you look at passer rating allowed here from PFF at corner, Carrington Valentine this year is a slightly better passer rating when targeted than Jaire Alexander at 77.9. Jaire's at 79.9. Then behind them, it's a big drop-off to Eric Stokes, 96.3 passer rating allowed. Nixon, 100.9 passer rating allowed. Corey Ballantyne, 112.5 passer rating allowed. And then Javon Bullard, dead last, 123.4 passer rating allowed. And so that's the issue here. I don't think that Javon Bullard has played great when it comes to coverage. I think that Keyshawn Nixon can play great at times, but I think he's somewhat inconsistent. And Eric Stokes, I think he's played maybe a little bit better football recently, but still, I don't think it's been great. So I think that's what we saw against the Vikings last week. The Packers sort of struggling there. But hopefully the Packers can find a way come playoff time with a depleted secondary. Hopefully Evan Williams comes back soon, and the Packers can be healthy outside of Jaire heading into playoff time. But if you want more Packers content, feel free to subscribe down below. You can follow me on X/Twitter for more thoughts. My username there is @LukeBeller3. But thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys have a happy new year, and I'll see you guys next time.